Welcome to Pittsburgh Chatter, where I do interviews where I want, whenever I want, with who I want. And today I got a special guest, photographer, artist, ballerina, actress, and model, Indira. How's it going?
Good, good. How are you today?
I'm good. Okay, so it took a while to get you in here, but I'm finally have you in here and I'm happy. Okay, so first let's start in the beginning. So when it comes to your career, did you originally first start out wanting to be a ballerina, or what was the first thing that you wanted to do, like your first love and passion?
So, actually, I wanted to be an I called them movie stars. I didn't know the word actor at that point, but when I was probably like 4 or 5, I was like, I'm gonna be a movie star. I wanted to be just like Raymond Simone. I wanted to have like my own Disney show. That's what I really wanted to do when I was little. And then when I was 6, I discovered dance and I saw black dancers dancing on point on stage for the first time ever, and I just was instantly in love with it. I knew that was for me.
And that was you said at the age of 6, correct?
Hmm.
Okay, so was it a specific play? What was the specific thing that you saw that made you want to?
Yeah, I saw Epiphany 2, I believe. There were two productions, Epiphany and Epiphany 2, from the studio where I ended up training, Balethnic Academy of Dance, their dance company, Balethnic Dance Company. I saw them from the wings because my church choir was collaborating with them, and my mom used to sing in the choir. And so she brought me along because I was a little dancer. I was taking dance class at a studio, south of Atlanta. It used to be Atlanta Festival Ballet. And so she's like, oh, I'm going to bring my daughter along. She's with me for the day. It was no problem. But I was talking to the dancers because, they see this kid sitting backstage. They were all being really nice to me, and I followed one of them into the wings because she was like, okay, I have to go now. And I said, okay. But I didn't want her to leave, so I just followed her. And then I was like, oh my gosh, that's a stage right there. And that's how I saw them.
Okay, so but you're kind of young at this age. So when you learned about it at 6, but when was did you start taking that first step, like that first practice? Like,
I had already been in classes. I started taking
okay,
dance classes when I was 3, but
whoa,
I didn't really understand what it could look like and what it could feel like to see people who looked like me doing that. Because the studio where I started, I don't really remember another other POC actually when I was really really little, like 3. But at the same time, I was 3, so I couldn't name that. I couldn't say there's no one that looks like me. But when I saw someone that looked like me doing it and doing it at a professional level, something in my spirit just really resonated with that, and I could feel it. I could feel it like as a calling even at 6. That's what I knew it was.
seeing people of color definitely in like your field and being successful in it, it can definitely spark your interest and let you know, okay, it is possible. It
Hmm.
definitely is possible. Okay, so there's a lot of difficulties and there's a lot of pain dancers go through, especially ballerinas. So let's talk about that a little bit because, of course, when you get older, you get used to it. But I know when you were young, it was probably like, oh, this is a lot. So what are some of the difficulties that you went through young?
Honestly, learning the discipline of it. And I think that it's more difficult for some than others. I feel like at first it was difficult for me to have to give up some social things that I wanted to do, like, oh, you can't go to this birthday party, you can't do this because you have rehearsal. And like, my parents were like, if you're going to commit to doing this, you need to honor your commitment. And at first I would be like, oh, like I wish I could do both, or I wish I could do this thing instead, just this one time, but that's not how a commitment works. And so eventually, once I really became serious about it, it honestly wasn't even that much to me. I was like, no, I actually want to be at the studio right now. Like, this is what I want to be doing. Of course, the discipline of making yourself do the hard things, like when you're tired and you still need to do that dance one more time, or you didn't do it exactly right, and your teacher's like, do it again. And you're like, I don't want to do it again. Building that discipline within yourself is definitely a challenge, but I would say those are the younger challenges. Different challenges as you get older, obviously, when you realize what the world is like.
But one of the main things that people struggle with, consistency and commitment. So
Yes.
you had learned that early on, explains why you get everything that you dream of done, incomplete and in whole. All right, so your first performance, what was this like and what was it?
Oh my goodness. My parents showed me this archival VHS tape when I was younger. Like, it feels so crazy to say that now. But my first performance, I remember it was a recital, and I had a Minnie Mouse costume.
Minnie Mouse, that was the theme. Okay, I got you, got
Yes,
you.
for our little recital piece. I was 3 years old, and I have always been true to character. I am very adamant about this is the step. This is what it is, and I know what it is, and I need to let you know that that's not it. I've gotten better about it as an adult because obviously it's not worth it sometimes, but like I always know. I remember, and when I was 3, we're doing this dance on stage, and this girl was not doing her steps right. Like, she was next to me. There's like 4 kids on the stage. And I turned to her, like, I stopped what I was doing mid-dance, and I was like, telling her, like, that's not what the step is on the stage. And I'm watching this back probably when I was 10 years old, and I was like, I can't believe this. Like,
Was it throwing you off? Like throwing you
I
off?
don't know. I can't even tell you what was going through my little 3-year-old head. But I was like, I have to let her know that's not the step. Like, that's not what we practiced.
When you're a kid, though, you're honest. You don't have that, like,
And
you
that's
know.
probably what it was. I was like, I have to let you know. Like, not even like you're doing it wrong. Just like, no, that's not the step. Like, wait. That's not the step.
And so when the Minnie Mouse theme, explain this a little bit more. So, like, what was it specifically? Was it like a Disney type of Wonderland? Like, what was it?
It was just a recital piece, so that was our costume.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
and so
okay.
we were just doing a little tap dance with our Minnie Mouse costumes on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so then you went to the, I don't want to get the name incorrect. So, as soon,
Balethnic.
okay,
Yeah.
Balanethic. I'm sorry. Damn, I tortured that. I could, go ahead, just say the whole name. I'm so sorry.
Balethnic Dance Company.
Okay. So, when you first got into this, was it, like, how does it work? Do you go to a middle school and do you go straight into, or like, how does that work? Because that's a high school, correct?
No, so they kind of like how Hadat supplements with extracurricular training, but the kids don't go to school here. It was an academy like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so I started going there for summer camp after I saw that performance when I was 6. That next summer, I was enrolled in camp because I was like, I have to be there. Like, what ages do you accept? Like, I need to be here. And I did summer camp only for 3 years. And then when I was 9, we enrolled, and I was a full-time student. And so I would go, at that age, the obligation was significantly less. I think I went like 2 days a week, once after school, and then I had my little Saturday class. And
So you were still doing school. So this was
Yeah.
like kind of similar to maybe like going to school and then going to football practice kind
Right,
of thing.
yeah,
Okay, I got you.
exactly.
Okay. And so then you said you were going 2 times a week and then,
Yes, so when I first started, you don't have to take as many classes because you're a beginner and you're just getting the basics. So I only took like 2 classes a week. And then you had the option to do productions. So I did Nutcracker and their spring show, which alternated every year. And then the older I got and the more I progressed, the more classes I needed to take. So by the time I would say probably like 8th grade, and every year past that, I was there almost every day of the week.
and
After
so
school, yeah.
are you touring with them? Like, how does that work? Because you said you did the Nutcracker, but is that like something like you may perform multiple times a year? Like, how does that work?
So we would rehearse starting in around September, and the shows would happen usually the week before Thanksgiving, for a whole weekend. So we would do like a school show Wednesday morning, school show Thursday morning, shows Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday matinee, Saturday night, Sunday matinee. And that would be the run of the shows. It wasn't a touring obligation, though. When I auditioned for their pre-professional company, I did go on tour with them a few times. So they took the pre-professional company with their professional company up to North Carolina once. That was a really fun trip.
What age is this though?
What? I'm sorry.
What age are you when this happens?
Ooh.
Because pre-professional, that's pretty big, so that's why I'm asking.
Oh yeah, I think I was 12 when I auditioned.
What?
Yeah. So they would take us sometimes, and that pre-professional company, we would perform around the city of Atlanta as well, but not so much touring like out of state. That would happen on, like a rare occasion because they usually reserve that for their professional company with the adults and everything.
Mm-hmm. All right, so there's another thing I want to ask during this time because, of course, you're focusing on dance, and that's the main thing, but you also do art and you do photography. So are you finding time to do these things also while you're dancing, or is it just all dance and that stuff comes a little later?
Now or when I was young?
When you were young.
Yeah, when I was younger, it was definitely hard to balance everything. And at one point, I had to make a choice as to what I was going to prioritize. When I was younger, I was, of course, I mentioned interested in acting. And so I was taking acting classes for a while as an extracurricular activity outside of school and doing competitions with that and just doing auditions, bookings, stuff like that. But that was interfering with dance, and I decided I wanted to get really serious. So I definitely scaled back on that. I was taking violin for a while, and I think I played, I would say, probably about 8 years. And
You're so subtle about it. This is a lot. Gosh. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
I really loved it, but I decided very early on, like when I felt that calling in my spirit for dance, that was what I wanted to be serious about. And so the other things I enjoyed doing recreationally, but there was always this push from whoever I was working with that they needed more from me. And I was like, well, I can't give you more. So I guess we'll just have to put it by the wayside for now and come back to it at a later date because I'm really committed to pursuing this thing right now. So that was one thing that I made time for probably until I would say I was like a freshman in high school, and then I was like, it's too much. I can't keep up with this obligation. And then as a part of my school curriculum, I actually picked up film photography. So of course I did have to make time for that because that was like something I was taking as a class and being graded on, but it didn't feel like a huge obligation most of the time. I would say sometimes there would be a project that I know was due and I'd be scrambling because I was at dance the whole weekend or something and I didn't have time to plan a shoot or anything. But for the most part, I really enjoyed the work of it, so I could find time to do it, and I considered it a part of my schoolwork. So it was usually something that I could keep up with.
So after your high school years, is it all a blur because you're so focused on dance, or did you actually get to enjoy some of your high school experiences?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that because I would say it's a blur, but I would also say I really enjoyed it because I enjoy dance.
Mm-hmm.
So, I wouldn't say I enjoyed it in the traditional sense.
Mm-hmm.
I was not, going to the football games and the homecoming dances, but sometimes I would. Like, I would, be like, oh, I might go to this one thing, they probably see me at one social event a year, but that was, by that point, I was so serious about dance, and I had my community of friends at dance. I was way closer to them than a lot of people at my high school.
Middle school, you've been knowing most of them, correct?
Honestly, younger than that, I would say elementary school.
So there's a deeper connection for sure.
The girls that I met then, we basically, some stopped training, but the ones that I met and was close, and the ones that I was close to, oh my God, we continued together for that whole time. So we really grew up together. So I was close to them, and I definitely had friends I was close to at school, but they also knew me since I was probably primary school because the school goes K through 12. So they knew how serious I was about dance, and they saw me during the day, and they knew I was not going to be at the football game. I was not going to be at the basketball game, but I'll see y'all at lunch. We're going to hang out. My one best friend from school, she was like, "You promised me you would come to senior prom. I know you're not coming to anything else, but you promised me you were coming to this." I said, "Yes, girl." Like,
So you did go to prom.
I did.
Okay.
Because I promised her I would go. I did go. And I was excited, though, because the school that I ended up transferring to so I could dance more as a senior in high school, I actually took a fashion design class. And I was like, I want to make my dress for senior prom. So I was really excited about that thing, even though I was not the most social person. I was like, yes, like I made my dress. I'm really excited.
So you found a way to be interested and excited about it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the big thing where like all dancers, I just know it. You get it like your whole like youth age leads up to this one big showcase or performance or something you have to do. So we're in your 12th grade year now. What is the big performance, big showcase, or the thing that you have to do? Like, you know what I'm talking about here? Or?
Yeah, I would say, it was probably just the last time I was performing as a student with that academy. That was a very sentimental day. And I grew up with two girls that were also graduating in my same class that I had known, like I said, since I was in elementary school, and we were very close. So there were three people of this group of maybe like 8 or so that were all gonna leave the same year because we were graduating, and it was just a very sentimental day for all of us. Lots of tears. We had some really meaningful group numbers, of course, and then the three of us each had a solo that we were performing as a senior. So that was probably, I would say, the biggest thing for me. I had this variation that I was working on and that I had been working on for months leading up to that, and that was kind of my like senior solo, senior goodbye. So that was the big performance, I would say, that it culminated my years there.
And you enjoyed it though, right? You
Oh, of course. Like, sentimental in the best way. Good tears, happy tears, sad tears, bittersweet tears, but all because of how much we loved each other, how much we loved the organization, how much we loved dancing, the fact that we were growing up, all of those things at once.
When you go on your Instagram, and I'm looking at some of the pictures and videos, it like even when you're doing the Nutcracker, it's just like you can tell that you're happy. Like when you're on the dance floor, it's like genuine, like the smile and everything. So I get exactly what you mean by that. I just want to let you know.
Yes.
So after this, you go to the University of Oklahoma, correct? So what was this process like of your college? Did you know what college you wanted to go to? How did you figure it out? And then how did you end up at that college?
So here's where we get into, when you asked me what were some of the pains and the struggles as a child, and I said they were different once I got older. This is where we get into that. So I had an idea of some places that I was very interested in. And in my mind, I was going to go to school for dance because that's what I wanted to do. And I was also going to get another degree in sociology because that was something in education that I was very passionate about. But I auditioned for probably about 20 different schools, and I only got accepted to one dance program. And I asked some people that I knew who were Black dancers and that were classically trained about their experience in that program, and they told me, which didn't surprise me at all, that they honestly were being geared more towards the modern side of the program, even though they went there to get training in classical ballet because they were Black, and they did not necessarily have the best experience in that program. And I said, okay, I'm going to try to figure something else out because I want to continue to pursue classical ballet, and I wasn't really making any headway trying to do it in an academic sense. So I had to pivot. And I ended up going to the University of Oklahoma because I auditioned for Oklahoma City Ballet's summer program and got a scholarship to go. And then I went and I got a trainee contract for the next season. And so with the offer that the University of Oklahoma made me as an academic student, it made the most sense to be able to, take this really good scholarship, but also continue my dancing with a major ballet organization.
Okay, let's highlight that a little bit. The academic parts. All right, so what did you graduate with? I'm curious. And not for college, for high school, your GPA. Because I seen
For
the
something.
I was about to say I seen your GPA for college, and I'm like,
it was for something.
Okay,
I
okay.
don't know what, but I can't remember now. But
for something like I didn't even know it could get any higher. So you also were a genius too. Like you're not only great at dancing, you actually were a genius.
I will say that I work very hard on my schoolwork. That's what I'll say. Like I definitely love academics. I love learning. I've always been academically inclined, but I also worked really hard on my schoolwork. Like I enjoy getting like straight A's, like that was my thing. But like if it wasn't natural, I was not gonna just accept that it was not natural. I was like, okay, so I need to do some more work. Like all subjects were not the easiest. I will say, like, oh my goodness.
Was it worse?
History sometimes or math, like that would get me, but I would be in the tutorials. Sometimes like chemistry class, I loved it, but I was not the best at it, I will admit. So I would be in tutorial every day. I'd be like, please help me understand this. Like I'm not getting it.
So you still got an A in it though?
Eventually, like I was working for it.
Okay. So some things came easier to you than others.
For sure.
As far as your college experience though, when it comes to the academics in that sense, was it easier for you in college because you're able to schedule things, or like how was it for you in college?
Honestly, the school that I went to up until senior year, they would always tell us that they were so hard on us and the rigor was so much because they wanted us to be prepared for college. And they would tell us that a lot of times seniors would come back and visit and be like, oh, college is actually easier than going to this school. And I will say largely I did experience that when I was in college. I felt like I was very well prepared to take on most of the courses that I was taking, and it wasn't that I had to do no work, but most of the classes that I would have expected to challenge me, ones that were related to my major and writing, I felt like I was very easily able to do well in those classes just by applying everything that I had already done in high school. It was actually interesting that some of the electives were more challenging just because they involved a lot of rote memorization. Like I took this music history class thinking that I would be more interested in it than dance history because I've already taken so much dance history. I didn't want to like repeat stuff and feel like I was getting bored. That class was so hard because I had to memorize so much stuff that didn't really feel like I had a place for it in my life. So I was like, oh, this is kind of hard. Or like statistics. This one statistics class, I was struggling, but I did the work. I was like, I'm going to do these assignments over and over and over again and work with this teacher until I can understand and get the grade that I want. And that's how it worked.
When you got here, did you have any team spirit? Because this is a school that's literally built on team spirit.
For Haddad?
No, for a University of Oklahoma. When you got to the college.
Oh, yeah, they are really centered around
It's
the school
crazy.
And like the sports and everything. I will say I was not super participating in all of that because I was juggling going to school full time, a full-time like 40-hour dance schedule, like so as long as a job, and I was also tutoring because I needed to make like some money as well. So I didn't really do a lot of social stuff like with school, and I also wasn't living on campus because the ballet company was in the city and the campus is like 45 minutes away, no traffic. So I was trying to commute for a while, but I was spending like 3 hours in the car every day, and it was not sustainable. So I just had to move off campus pretty early, and I was very happy with that. I think now looking back, I'm like, yeah, there are definitely some things that I probably would have been interested in that I didn't necessarily know about, but I don't know that it would have been like the college parties or the football games, more like building networks and stuff with people who are in similar interests.
And just one question, what was your major during this time? Sociology. So, okay. In 3 years you graduated, correct? Normally people do 4 or more.
Yeah.
Again, genius. So, all right, you graduate with sociology, and then next thing, sociology and what? Or that was just
Just sociology.
okay. So you graduate with that. Then what's the next step?
Ooh, well, I graduated in 2020, so right like in the height of COVID. So I didn't go like to the graduation ceremony. We didn't have one that year. They had it the next year for their 2020 and 2021 graduates. Very long ceremony. But I moved home when the pandemic started, and I was still finishing my classes because I took most of my classes online. So sometimes I would be like outsourcing. I was working really hard with my advisor, and she was like, as long as you can find a class that meets the requirement, we're going to approve you. I know you have these extenuating circumstances. You're trying to balance a career right now. Like, we're going to work with you. I'm very grateful for her. So a lot of times I would find classes at other universities that would meet my requirements for my degree and get her to approve them so I could do most of my work online. So that honestly ended up working out fine when I had to move home because I was like, I don't want to be alone during the pandemic. That's like a lot. I'm just going to go home. So I was living at home in Atlanta and finished my classes online, making sure to, stay safe with my family and everything. And then once things started to open up after lockdown, I started dancing with Balethnic, where I grew up, because I was in Atlanta, trying to figure some things out.
And now you're professional, correct?
Mm-hmm, okay. Yes, so I went back and was guesting with them for that season and just trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, honestly. And then I ended up auditioning for a company here, Confluence Ballet, and I got a job, and I moved here in August of 2021. So after a year of being at home, and that's how I got here.
Okay, well, that's perfect because now you just told me. Now let's get to the second part. Then you start, before we get to the Hadat, I want to talk about the Pittsburgh Opera. So how did you get into the position to get that job? Because that's different from what was the first one you named?
Confluence Ballet.
That's different from Pittsburgh Opera, correct?
Yes.
So tell me how you got into this and tell me your experience with them.
So one of my friends, Kat Burton, love her, creative director in the city, she's great. She sent me this audition posting that Pittsburgh Opera was looking for black dancers for an opera they were doing called We Shall Not Be Moved, produced by Bill T. Jones. And I went to the audition because I was like, oh, that's cool. Let me go audition. And I booked the job. And so that process was, honestly, we did music rehearsals probably for about a month leading up to the official rehearsal process, just because, you had the option to learn the music by yourself if you wanted to, but I was like, if somebody's gonna offer to help me learn this music, like, I'm definitely gonna take advantage of that and be in the tutorials and everything. So I would go to the music rehearsals a few times a week and just learn it with a pianist, and he would play and help me break down the parts that I was supposed to be singing. And then on the actual start of the rehearsal process officially, we had maybe 9 days to learn an entire show. So it was expected that you would know the music on day one, because by the time we got in there with all the opera singers, the stage designers, and like stage managers, everybody's at the front of the room, everybody's in the room, all the people, they didn't have time to teach you the music. So we were learning blocking, choreography, staging, all of that. And we finished, I think the opera is maybe like 2.5 hours. I might be wrong. We finished that in 9 days. Yeah.
All right. So this is one of those things where it's like you said, you've been doing this since 3. All of that collective year of experience just kicks in and starts to like.
It definitely did. It definitely did. And I will say, like, I definitely thought I was in over my head the first few days. I was like, I don't know. I don't know about this. I don't know if I can do it. But, I called my parents. I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, just stick it out. Like, you can do this. And I'm like, this is a huge opportunity. And there's definitely that moment where you're like, am I even ready for this? But you just, in those moments, you have to trust, like you were saying, all of the work that you've done prior to that moment and that led to that moment, and trust that you can do it. And so I made it through.
First of all, I want to say congratulations to you and kudos to you, because I've done performances, and in 9 days, I don't think anybody that's done performances is going to know that's ridiculous, simply because you usually spend around months
Yeah.
training
Yeah.
to do that. So so they gave you like what? How much time to learn the music? I know they gave you a little bit of time for that,
It was
correct?
probably about a month, but rehearsals were a few times a week for maybe like a few hours per rehearsal, like an hour or so, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. So I would say probably about a month before the actual rehearsal process started, they started those music rehearsals. Definitely took full advantage of that because, like you're saying, I'm like, I know this process is going to be quick because I see when we start rehearsals and I see when we're supposed to be in the theater. So I know that's not a huge window that they're giving us. So let me get in the studio.
And so, what was your role in this in the opera work? Because you're saying you had to sing some parts too,
I did.
and dance.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. All right, so tell me, like, what exactly was your role in this?
I was an OG, which in the show is like it's a spirit. There are several spirits. There were 4 of us, and there are spirits of these children who were killed in the bombings, the Philly bombings. And so they're kind of like haunting this house in the scene of this new family that is trying to hide out in this house, this abandoned house. And so that's who I was. I was one of the spirits. And so we dance, we maneuver things in the show. We're singing as well. And then there was also this, we were mostly singing backgrounds, that's what I'm trying to say, because they had professional opera singers, but I did have a solo at one point, and so at that point I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm singing by myself on this stage with professional opera singers, like I had to...
There's levels to it.
Yeah, like I was like, oh my God, like, but, we made it through, we did it.
But like I'm saying, you're in the moment, you're shocked, you realize, but you also realize, all right, I'm here because I do this too. Like, I'm her too. So, like, you obviously have to kick in and do your thing.
Yes. Like, I had to have my little moment, and then I was like, okay. I can do it. Yeah.
All right. So, and when did your tenure with Pittsburgh Opera end? And then how did you end up at Haddad?
It was only about like 2 months that I was working with them. A month officially, and then the month before where it was like optional music rehearsals. But I was already working at Haddad before I got that booking with Pittsburgh Opera. I started at Haddad in like February of 2022, and I did the opera April through May of 2023. So I've been with Haddad for just over 2 years now.
And you teach dance here, correct?
Yeah.
And so how do you feel about that? To see, look, you're smiling. You
I
love the dance.
I love it. I love it here. I love dance, of course, duh. But I love the full circle feeling of having grown up in a very Black studio, learning this classical art form and feeling safe in my identity as a Black girl, and being able to do that for these students here as a teacher, and how full circle that feels for me. I know that teachers always say this, but it's true. Like, you learn so much from your students. You really do, and they continue to inspire me. They make me presently always conscious of my why, and why I started, why I'm doing this, what it was like for me when I was little, and reminding me of my younger self and how far I've come. So they're light and joy all the time.
Okay.
Even when they're getting yelled at, I still love them.
All right, and we're running out of time here, so there's one thing I do want to highlight before we leave here. When it comes to being a ballerina, there's not a lot of Black women. So you had talked about it early on of seeing it and being like, okay, it is possible to be done. But when you're in these spaces, are you seeing a lot of other Black faces?
No, not usually. And that is probably the biggest problem, honestly, because being one of them, I'm sorry,
You're good.
being one of them when there are few, I mean, you know what it feels like.
Yeah.
But there's just so much that comes with that. It's so layered, you know, the microaggressions, the macroaggressions, the lack of safety, the projections that people make. You know, I would say we were just talking before we started that I feel like most people perceive me as like pretty quiet, chill, like, you know, not super like rah rah or anything. Like the perception that has been projected onto me in spaces where I am like one of very few black people present is just really completely and totally opposite. And it just shows, you know, the internalized racism, honestly, that people have in these spaces, because I've gotten everything from mean, aggressive, like all of that. And I'm like, anyone who knows me would say like, no, that's not her at all. Like, I'm not sure, you know, how they arrive at that. And then I'm like, actually, I am sure. I do know why. But it's hard. It's hard to balance all of that and still do your craft at your highest level and be excellent. And it's exhausting, honestly, to be trying to combat all of that when you're just trying to make art. So that's
Your talent threatens people. That's what it seems like. That if that because I know what it's like. So that's why I'm saying that's what it sounds like to me. It just all right.
maybe so.
What can we do to change the perception? I know you got to go, but what can we do to change the perception?
What can we do? I don't know what we can do as a nation, honestly, like as a collective, but as black people, continue to support black artists. And I'm not talking about your favorite black artist, the one that you know, like do things that are outside of your normal, like I always listen to this, I always go to this kind of show, especially black classical artists. There's not enough support. Like commercial, always continue to support them. Always continue. But then also support your black classical artists, because there's fewer, and we need your support. We need you to come out for us and to show up for us when we're doing stuff, so that, you know, when people see the success because black people are doing it, then they want to hop on the bandwagon, you know? So we're out here creating and trying to get an audience to support us. And so make sure that you also go to stuff like that. You know, I know there are some very talented, of course, black classical dancers, but black classical singers in Pittsburgh. And of course, I've stumbled upon them because I love classical art and, you know, current, I love any kind of art. So I'm always meeting new artists, but I'm like, I wish that we could get as much support as other forms of art. So definitely come out and support. There's room for you here. And I know that because of the elitist nature of these classical art forms, it feels inaccessible. It doesn't matter. Just come out. Just be there, be present. And your support will be felt. Know that it actually matters. Like, you'd be like, oh, like, it doesn't really matter if I go or not. They're still gonna have the show. No, like, please. It does matter. It does. And we wanna share our art with you. We wanna share our art with our community, not just the typical patrons of classical art. Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't have said it any better. That's the perfect way to end it. So tell people where they can follow you, what you have coming up, and everything else.
Oh, okay. You can follow me on Instagram at Indira Annalise. And that is, do I need to spell it? Okay. INDIRAANNALISE. That's my Instagram. And my website is indiraannalise.com, same spelling. What do I have coming up?
You sell art on there too, don't forget.
I do, yes, I do. I have some art prints on there. I am trying to as we talked about earlier, with balancing in high school, as an adult, it's still something that I'm working on. I want to balance all of the creative things that I love doing. So I'm still trying to find that balance, trying to get some stuff updated, get some more art prints on there. But I do have some art prints on there as well. What am I doing coming up? I would say stay tuned with my Instagram and my website, honestly. I don't have anything super upcoming, but some stuff later in the year that's in the works.
You don't want to jinx it.
Yeah.
I got you.
It's
I got
not
you.
on the calendar yet, but we're in the works. So,
Got you.
definitely stay tuned.
All right. I appreciate you for coming in.
Of course. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Man.